Hello, this is Jon Speelman with a video version of my latest fortnightly column, which is number 148 in fact, and I've called Mirror Mirror on the Wall. And I'm just going to check that I am recording, because otherwise there's no point continuing. So we'll get this for a moment, and I am. Good. So Mirror Mirror on the Wall, who is the fairest of them all, is a fairy story. I think it's Snow White. Anyway, the reason I called it that is because I'm talking about who's the strongest player of all time. So a fortnight ago in the previous column, I looked at a couple of Magnus Carlsen's games, and he'd, rather overthought things and lost them. But I said, well, of course he's the strongest player at the moment, and I said, arguably, he's the best player ever to have lived. Now, this... slightly to my surprise, this caused a die-hard Fischer supporter to say, absolutely not, completely impossible. Now, of course, arguably doesn't mean that I'm asserting that he is. I'm saying that an argument could be made. Now, it may be that die-hard Fischer supporters think you can't even make an argument that Carlsen is the strongest player ever. It's a moot point, of course, and I'm very happy to have readers talking about, what you think in the comments. And we'll see. I hope we'll get... I just had 3 comments last time, but they were quite pertinent. One was the Fischer supporter. Of course, he was the best ever. One was somebody saying, well, arguably means that it's an argument. And another saying, well, actually, if Fischer had had computers and databases, so would his opponents. And one thing I would say is that Magnus Carlsen today, who wins a lot of games, okay, at the moment they're mostly rapid play games on the internet, has to prepare against centaurs, against people and humans, and find new ideas day in, day in. So although the standard of preparation he can produce is much higher, so is the standard of preparation of the opponents. Anyway, it can be argued, and I talked about who the best modern players are. I said blah, 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 Fischer, Karpov, Kasparov, Carlsen. Then I added in Anand and Kramnik. And I also said that actually, personally, in terms of playing against people, the strongest player I think I ever played was Vasily Ivanchuk, the most talented. Just, of course, his nerves never allowed him remotely to become world champion, because he almost always played wonderfully against me, because he wasn't nervous, because he was a better player. But once stressed, he couldn't quite do it often, sadly. I mean... Right, so then... I then said, well, let's have a look at a couple of games and we'll consult our mirror. And I thought I'd give a Fischer game and a Karpov game. Oh, I also gave some possible appellations for them to 2-word characterizations, which you may hate. Please tell me I'm an idiot if you like. I said Bobby Fischer, precise power. I think he was very powerful, but I mean, if there was the third adjective, it would be terrifyingly precise power, or fearsomely precise power. And I said Karpov, deft control. He's fantastic coordination of his pieces. And, well, both of these games actually involve Boris Spassky losing, so I said, please tell me games you'd like me to look at in the next few columns as the mirror continues to do its work. And, we'll see what happens. I suggested Kasparov. One Kasparov game I like is his game, against Predrag Nikolic. There's one where he plays FE3 early on and plays knight takes G7 and blows the guy's guts out. I think it's Predrag, isn't it? Yep, I believe it is. Anyway, we'll see. So the 2 games are Fischer Spassky, game 6 from, is it game 6 from Reykjavik? It is game 6. And the other one is Karpov Spassky, which is the game with many manoeuvres. So this game has been annotated by numerous different people over the years, and their ideas were already incorporated in the notes which I lifted from Megabase. I've kept most of what they said and added my own notes to give a narrative. 1 C4 was already a big surprise, since Fischer almost always played C1 E4, of course. So C4, E6, knight F3, D5. And what Fischer wanted to do was to test Spassky in the Tartakova variation. Of course, there are lots of other ways. We call it the Tartakova variation in England anyway, and I think perhaps quite a lot of Europe. I don't know. The Russians definitely call it the Makhagonov Bondarevsky variation. I said bishop b2, bishop b7, bishop f6, f6, cd5, cd5, b4 was later became a main line. Sorry, I might as well take out the y from later. Became a main line, which was heavily explored in the first Karpov-Kasparov match, the Moscow Marathon. I played it myself a bit. I played it against Nigel Short in the first game of our first candidates match, and got a lousy position and managed to draw. And later on, I found that Nigel, before that match, had actually done work with Boris Spassky himself in order to prepare for me. So that was interesting. Okay, anyway, Fischer wanted to play this line. Many times played before, and he played bishop b5. Bishop b2 had been played more commonly, and a6, and later on, much later on, there's king f8 is a reasonable move to defend the queen, preparing c4, and you can take with the rook actually, and this is going to be, with white's pawns doubled, presumably this is okay for black. I mean, white's pawns are a bit of a mess. I mean, it's still very, very slightly enjoyable for white. I would have thought there's some random game I gave which gave a draw. And the interesting move is to play queen b7, really. Queen b7 is an interesting move. If you go take, there's knight a6, and actually I stopped here. I shouldn't have stopped here. There was I think you can either take, in which case, queen, if takes, queen takes, it's a very big deal. Can't castle. I think you go queen here, queen here. Presumably you can go queen a6 if you want to make a draw. I don't know, if queen a6 maybe then king d2. Rook b8 is being given by this engine and saying b8. I don't know how queen a6 is. b3 is just about rook c8, I would have thought. Queen d2, and this engine thinks that this is slightly better for white, but it's still, I suppose here it's going to be hard to, you're going to be able to unravel actually. Okay, so but with precise play, I don't know if there are any games. Let's just look for reference. No games here, and this is being given as equals plus by my engine. Rook b8. Who played rook b8? 2 games of rook b8. Both drawn. Okay, are these guys strong? This guy's a reasonable player. Reasonable players. Okay, let's go back to notation. What's happening? There we go. And let's just have a note. Black is at least equal. Is at least equal. But of course, I also said I thought that I thought that now if queen c6 takes rook b8, so is also interesting. Queen c6. Takes, takes. Takes. And rook b8 they play actually, do they? b8. So that if b3 there isn't bishop a4 to d1. Okay. And this is also given as about equal castles rook b2. Okay, so lots of stuff was found later. And basically it's not that dangerous idea, but Spassky had to face this. It had been played before, but not often. And he got it a bit wrong, actually. He's a little bit... I don't know, a5 must be a reasonable move. Timon says plus equals. All these bods giving all these lines. Basically up to here, positions round about equal, I suppose, plus equals, a little bit more comfortable for white. Engines are able to defend hanging pawns. If you get hanging pawns, people find it very difficult. So it's not much fun. I mean, king f8 was suggested. Queen f8 is not a good idea, probably. But here, apparently, my engine is still saying that knight f6 is okay, which I'm not really sure about at all. I don't know if I believe that. But d4 is definitely a bad move by Spassky, because now white gets to c4 square and black's pawns get ossified in the centre. Bogged down is the word I used there. f4, queen e7. So king h8, e5, knight b6. Delta e5, knight b6, bishop c4. I think that this was given as a line by Timon. He said, oh, it's fine, but actually after rook to e6 was given by Timon, but in fact rook f7 wins. It's so much easier to annotate when you've got an engine that goes ping when you get it wrong. I mean, obviously it completely changes things, because you go from sometimes you're going to make blunders, sometimes not, to being absolutely certain what's going on. Okay, anyway. Now he gets an e5, rook b8, knight b6 is bad because of f5, and ef5, queen b3 check. So you can't go knight b6. Yeah, rook b8, bishop c4. And here he should really have started trying to bail out, I think. Not much fun, but I mean, knight b6, and if queen c5, knight takes, queen takes, you can play chess. I mean, you're worse, of course, but you can fight a little bit, perhaps. You can try to. I mean, rook c8 check and queen d3 check. It's not at all pleasant, but it's not completely over. I can fight. Though check. Sorry, I can fight. Though check here. Queen d3. Check. g6. Is most unpleasant. Oh, sorry, got a cap lock, naughty cap lock. Right, P-L-E-A-S-A-N-T. Okay, so you could try to do that, and actually Tal said, well, why not just queen b3? And this is probably even worse, because now, yeah, knight d7, check, king h8, queen b3, rook b2. And that's probably what Fischer would have done, isn't it? Rook b1 equals plus minus. Sorry, I just lost the number of variations. Equals plus minus. Okay, so position was already very unpleasant. I mean, basically d4 was a very bad move. What happened was he got control now, Fischer, and now he just started to enjoy himself. He played b3 first, obviously, to defend his pawn. Then he plays f5, And he's just got a free pass, really. Doubles the rooks. Queen d8, Queen g3. Nice move. Calmly improving his position, he denies the knight the g5 square and creates luck to the king in the unlikely event that black can get a check. Well, black isn't going to get a check, is he? I mean, that's a pretty specious comment. And Fischer just moved his boys around until he got to the position he wanted. Now he's Queen e4. Now he's threatening rook f8 check. So rook takes pawn, rook f8 check, knight takes, rook takes, queen h7 mate. So queen knight f6, rook f6, and it destroyed. I mean, black's murdered now. Black's completely murdered. Right. So very, very fine game by Fischer. Famous game, one of his best, I think. Really impressive. And remember that Spassky was the world champion at the time. He played 2 matches with Petrosyan, lost the first one, won the second. And actually had a plus score against Fischer before the match as well, didn't he? I mean, he's a wonderful. I played Spassky a few times, never beat him, lost a couple of times. He had tremendous facility for just playing good moves. And this game, he just got splattered. I mean, it just went completely wrong. So, very impressive game. Now, the next game is Karpov-Spassky, another very impressive game. This was 2 years later in the Candidates tournament. The semi-final of the Candidates. Karpov beat Spassky. It was actually to 4 wins. I didn't know this till I looked it up in Wikipedia. And then the final was to 5 wins. Karpov beat Korchnoi. And then, of course, because Fischer didn't defend his title, I won't get involved in. I'm sure people will tell me that it was impossible for him to, or somebody will. Anyway, whatever happened, Fischer didn't defend his title and Karpov became world champion and was the dominant force for the next 10 years, really, wasn't he? And until Kasparov started playing him. The first Karpov-Kasparov match was 1984, wasn't it? And I've said deft control for Karpov. Very, very good at coordinating his pieces. His pieces always went to the right squares. And of course he was terrifying at the time, which helps. I mean, not to Spassky, but to the rest of mankind. Of course, Kasparov played this a lot as black against Karpov in their matches, but he played it a bit differently. Did he play probably had a6, a4 and then played rook e8 in this position. Well, now bishop d7 prepares to play knight takes d4, bishop takes d4, bishop c6 when black's got all his boys out. And knight b3 is a move. And here Spassky played a5, which is weakening b5, but it does annoy the b3 knight. So he gets some play. I think bishop c6 is probably dubious, actually, because e6 now would have prevented the knight's return to d4. So here g6, rook f2, e5. He thought he was doing fine, but actually, although you get this position, so the knight is active, and this pawn controls these 2 squares, which is important. And it looks as though black is quite active, but Karpov managed to completely suck the life out of black's position and turn his positional advantages. He's got black's pawns are a bit weak. A5, c6, e5 are all a bit weak, and he managed. So black is a good knight and the black squared bishop. So if the black squared bishops were off the board, would be doing well. But Karpov found a way to prevent their exchange and slowly take control, is what I said. And I'm going to, I think I, as usually, found a, what did I find there with an arrow rather than I? Okay. So, he played queen f1 first. Nice move. h3, stopping knight g4, just keeping control. Knight went away. I'm not sure if that's a great move. And now h5, weakening, though. I'm not sure. At some point, Spassky should have done better here. I mean, I have looked at this several times with people. I'm not sure at what point it becomes completely critical, but it does very soon. Queen c4, very nice. Bishop, rook, and rook f1. So on bishop c5, he could take an exchange, but it would be really stupid to get involved in this sort of thing. Why would you want to? It just keeps control. Rook f1, rook fd8. And here, this is the position where Karpov played a beautiful move. There's a threat of rook takes rook and knight takes c2, and he thought, well, which of my pieces is not working very well? And he thought, I don't really fancy my knight very much. It's not very well. So I am going to sort this out. And he played the beautiful move, knight b1. And I said, well, nowadays knight c6 to b8 happens in all sorts of openings as by black, and sometimes knight c3 to b1, but it's still a very striking move. White wants to remove the knight from b4, and this prepares to do so while expediting the white knight's return to the action on c4 or f3. Knight's move a little mysterious, at least from the optical perspective, and it will always take 3 moves to reposition c3 to c4. Nevertheless, even in an age when the retreat knight c6 to b8, or less often knight c3 to b1, has become completely standard, this move still makes an impression. Perhaps I should just say here, threatening rook takes d2, followed by knight takes c2. Okay, and beautiful move, knight b1, queen b7 he played, king h2, that's already threatening to play g3 and just win. And the man went there, c3, knight went back, and now he played an absolutely beautiful move. He'd realised that this position is much more fun for white with 2 pairs of minor pieces on the board. 2 pairs of rooks, excuse me, 2 pairs of rooks on the board, so he played the beautiful move rook e2. I'm not sure which of the 2 moves, knight b1 or rook e2, is more beautiful. There's knight b1, which is sort of a little pop. Okay, knight's always hop. There's king h2, menacing the h4 bishop, and there's rook e2. These 3 lovely, quiet moves, increasing the pressure. Knight f3, you can't play queen takes b2, because of knight f3. Let's just put that in, I suppose. Question mark. Knight f3. Knight f3. Guy went f6. I think he's under very heavy pressure, but f6 is very weakening. I don't know if he's probably lost at this point, really. If I ask an engine, it's going to say +1.5 or something, +1. Yeah, plus a lot. +2 in fact, but f6 weakened this rank. Rook to there, queen e6, rook d8. Now if rook takes, you can actually play knight takes e5. It's not completely trivial. There's queen c7, and originally I wanted to play something ridiculous. Queen f7, bishop f4 and bishop g5, which I thought won because I'd forgotten that the queen is protected by the knight and a6. So not this here, and bishop takes bishop. Because the black queen's protected. Okay, so you play some moves and you do this stuff. And unsurprisingly, if queen c5, you play e5. If queen e6, you take some stuff and bring your boys up and look at the position. You've already got 3 pawns. If you wanted to, you could play an ending probably, but why would you want to? Queen to there, threatening queen takes f6, that's the fourth pawn, and obviously you are winning very, very easily. You can probably play something where you take in c6 as well in a minute, and so you get about 12 pawns for the knight. Anyway, he went rook d1, knight b8, bishop c5, rook h8, and now it was time for Ragnarok, and the rook takes d8 resigns, because after rook takes d8, bishop e7, rook g8, check, king to there, check, king to there, queen takes rook is all blind. So a beautiful game by Karpov, and the really beautiful moves were the very gentle ones which improved his position. So knight b1's very striking. I think rook e2 is as striking, and they both deserve 1.5 exclamation marks. And king h2 is a good move as well. Beautiful game by Karpov. So I'm going to stop now, and I hope you've enjoyed this. And please give me some comments. Tell me other games by other world champions you'd like me to look at, and the mirror will remain in operation for a while. These guys, their best games are absolutely fantastic. Okay, cheers then. I'm going to stop now.